And we're recording for the Tuesday, June 11th, 2019 charts chat. There's only a few of us here today. So Paul was the one item on the agenda, and he's obviously not here to talk about it. Is there anything else that we should talk about? I do have one thing. I'll drop it into chat here. I just posted this morning. This was actually Adnan's idea, and it has to do with charts. So if y'all want to take a second look at it, Adnan has become really busy now that Bitnami has merged into VMware. He is over on the Valero team now, rather than where he was. That's what the rename of Heptio Arc is. It's Valero. And so we were chatting, and he came up with this, and I waited, gave him a little time to file the issue, and he just hadn't gotten around to it. I think he's pretty busy over there. But the whole idea is next to the templates directory, you have a CRDs directory, and then Helm tries to install those and make sure that they're there whenever it does something. So you can add CRDs, take them out, and if you don't have permissions, it'll let you know you don't have permission. Somebody needs to install it because it's a cluster level thing, and you may not have permission to do that because there's lots of cases where users they've got limited permissions, maybe just a handful of namespaces, and this is CRD installation won't work there. And then you could, maybe tell them the manual steps they need to do, whatever. And then you could also manage CRD dependencies this way. So if you've got one thing that depends on another, like say you've got one thing that depends on, say, the application CRD, you could have each of those wrapped up as a chart and with their CRDs in it, and then you have the dependency tree too. So you got dependency management of CRDs through Helm, so to speak. This was his idea.
I like that.
You like it?
Yeah. So currently we have the CRD hook, right? Would this still require the hook?
No.
No.
So currently we have, yeah, and right now, if you already have the CRD and you run the CRD install hook, it errors out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a problem of if it's there, you got a problem. So really what you need is wrapper logic that can detect if the CRD is present or not. And you can use the capabilities API right now to get the API group version. In the next minor release of Helm, you'll actually be able to detect the individual objects too. So you can do something like apps v1 deployment or whatever your CRD is. You can do all the way to that with capabilities. That's coming in the next 2.15, 2.16. And so that'll let us do that, but you're going to have if not this capability, then do the CRD, right? And so the whole idea, and you're going to have that same logic wrapped around every CRD with the install hook, right? For a version that's just going to become a common pattern. And so what if we just automated it with the CRD directory? The hard part that I'm not sure how to handle is what if the CRD content has changed in a meaningful way for the same version? And that's just a tricky thing, right? The Kubernetes response was, don't do that. Always increment the version. And they're like, well, you could get into tricky things. Like you have a field on there that has its own version and you can version things, but you always got to make sure it's backwards compatible. And, but the whole idea is don't do it. That's why you've got API, group versions, increment that stuff. But people don't do it. They will do things like change the descriptions on fields, change the add validation later, stuff like that to CRDs after they're already in the wild. And so figuring that out is the only hard part. So, okay, I like the idea too. Let's see. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
Uh,
I got nothing either.
nothing.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll have it short. What is the charts repo doing? I haven't actually looked at it much lately, sadly. Just because I've been working on some other stuff. There's one thing we could talk about here that impacts us is the Monocular. There was the pull request I filed on lowercase names required by Kubernetes. Here's the pull request. I don't know if anybody wanted to weigh in on this because it has to do with the Helm hub. Before I fix this pull request so someone can merge it, I took a bunch of notes. And the general areas are, what are other folks doing? How do we handle the same name as uppercase and lowercase? How do you do that? If we do allow uppercase letters, what about other characters and names like a dash or a space? And how do you handle internationalization of names? Which, I didn't really think about, but Kubernetes doesn't do internationalization of any of those names.
I mean, it's I don't think, I mean, we should just stick to what Kubernetes allows. You don't need internationalization in names.
It depends on, well, some of the names might be company names or organization names that have internationalized characters in them.
I know, but you just wouldn't do that. I mean, I'm German. I know we have umlaut and stuff like this, but I would never name anything with these characters. You just don't do it.
Yeah. This will get interesting. There is some folks are working on a Chinese version of the Helm Hub. I don't know if you know this.
No.
I think I have a URL to it. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they demoed it in the last meeting, and I couldn't read anything on it, but they're working on a Chinese version of it. And it is at, here was the URL for it. And so they started to work on this. And what's interesting about this is it's not just a clone of the hub. Many of the charts and images are not accessible inside of China because they sit in places that's just not accessible, right?
It's a new UI.
What?
It's really a new UI.
Yeah. But what they do is they take the charts and the chart dependencies and the requirements files and point them all to locations available within China, right? So all of the repositories are inside of China, and the images inside of them, if they need to be made available inside of China because they're not, like they're in GCR, then they're mirrored over there.
Okay, how do they get to the mirror?
Right. Well, we can get to stuff inside of China. Well, I haven't really looked at it that much, but this is what they're building here. And right now they're using all English names. But yeah, this is the hub that they're doing. And you can see it's different. It's obviously not the same code base. But this is what they're building over there. Which is it's interesting to me. But they're going through and they're trying to come up with automation in order to have, so when something happens in the upstream hub in one of those locations, they're able to pull in the change, automatically move the image, update the chart. They want to automate a bunch of this stuff in order to make it accessible there. Because I didn't realize, I knew that Google Cloud wasn't accessible in China, right? So that blocks things like Tiller in China. They can't get Tiller there. But it also blocks things like S3. I didn't realize this was sometimes accessible and sometimes not. And so that means Quay is sometimes accessible and sometimes not. So they're hosting everything through Alibaba. Yeah, this is one of the things they're working on over there. I need to translate it and try and go through everything, but I don't know if internationalization would matter for folks in some of these countries trying to make things human readable. They're able to use the hub. We have a broader effort also of just doing the Helm docs and things like that, getting them more internationalized. We had a chat with a CNCF. Is there a way to make some of the stuff like the Helm client internationalized, right? And maybe distribute PO files and stuff like that for different languages or allow people to create them.
Interesting. I wonder who needs this. I mean, every developer speaks English. I usually prefer the original, the English docs over translated ones, but maybe that's just we over in Germany.
Yeah, I'm not sure. In the Koreans out of South Korea and the Chinese have started to work on things for like cloud native docs. So like if you go to the Kubernetes documentation, there are teams who are just translating the English docs into Chinese and Korean. And the Chinese are hosted at a URL that's accessible in China because Kubernetes.io isn't. It's hosted in Google Cloud, and so it's not accessible in China. And so they have a different URL that's accessible there with Chinese translation. And I know the Korean folks are doing something. They can access Kubernetes.io, but they're doing their own translation. And so there are folks in countries like that who are trying to internationalize some of this stuff. In order to that, in fact, Kubernetes has a built-in I18N package to work with some of these translations, which I only discovered recently because I don't think it used to be there last time I looked. So there's just kind of an effort to help things become more accessible there, maybe to people who English isn't such a strong second language like it is for you. I won't be doing any of the translations. I'm poor in my English, much less another language. Okay. Anything else we should chat about? Well, that's it. Everyone have a good couple of weeks. We should try to figure out how to make this a little bit better in a couple of weeks. I don't know if it's the summer and we should go to once a month. We can do that offline, but how to reinvigorate this, make this useful again. All right.
Okay.
Have a good one. See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.